Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our food insecurity webinar this evening. My name is Caroline McLeod, and I'm the Legacy and Gifting Memory Manager here at World Vision, and I will be your host for this evening. I've now worked for World Vision for just over 5 years, and I'm married with 2 grown-up daughters, and I have 1 grandchild and 1 almost to be grandchild as they're due at the end of this month. And like so many of you, I've been sponsoring for many, many years, and I've chosen to continue my support by including World Vision into my will. So before I share with the running order for tonight, let me just get some of the housekeeping out of the way. You will all notice that all of your videos and microphones are all switched off. This is just really for the comfort of everyone here tonight. It's to help make sure that we don't have any accidental sort of interference or things that will stop people hearing clearly. But you will see at the bottom of your screen, for those of you not familiar with Zoom, you'll see there's a chat box and there's also a question and answer box. So please do feel free to add your comments to the chat box and also any questions you may have. Again, do pop your questions in there because we will have a question and answer session later. The event tonight, and there's also some emoji buttons as well, so do feel free to have a go with those as well. The event tonight is being recorded, so again, if you would like to watch that again yourself or with others, then please do ask us for a copy of the recording and we can get that sent to you. So now on to the agenda for this evening. We will be joined this evening by development practitioners Kevin Paniker, Rose Nadole and Arthur Mist, some of our amazing experts in this area. And they will be sharing with you just what World Vision is doing to help tackle food insecurity and the impact we're having in this growing crisis. Then we'll have a question and answer session, which will give you a chance to ask any questions that you may have to them, and they will answer them for you. Or if they can't answer them at the time, they'll get the answer and we'll get it back to you. We'll then have a chance for a short prayer before I bring our evening to a close. We're looking to finish 6:45 or as close as possible. So just to give you a bit of insight to some of the experts you'll be hearing from tonight. First of all, we've got Kevin Paniker. Kevin serves with World Vision in the role of Senior Humanitarian Manager. And his role is to help coordinate and resource the natural response work of World Vision UK. Sorry, the disaster response work of World Vision UK. While relatively new to World Vision, he has been involved in the development and humanitarian work for over 10 years and has worked in South Sudan, Kenya, and the Philippines. We then have Rose Nadole, and Rose is a senior nutrition and health program advisor with World Vision UK. And she began her work with World Vision 12 years ago in Kenya as a nutrition specialist, and then she later joined World Vision based in the UK. In her role, Rose provides technical support to ensure programs are designed to prevent malnutrition in children and provide treatment for those who are already affected by malnutrition. Rose's work cuts through long-term development, humanitarian emergency response, and advocacy. Then we have Arthur Mist, and Arthur has been working at World Vision for 17 years as a regional portfolio manager, which involves being the point person for some key World Vision East African offices. He has a lifelong interest in growing food, and I've been told in eating it as well. One of the parts of his job he enjoys the most is visiting the projects and ensuring they are high quality, encouraging the staff there and learning new ways of doing things. And he sometimes takes his wife Sarah along, as she's a beekeeper and enjoys learning about beekeeping in Africa. So as you can see, we have some exciting and experienced people lined up for you to listen to this evening. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Kevin. Thank you, Kevin.
Greetings, everyone. Thanks for taking time to be with us this evening. The webinar today is called Tackling Food Insecurity. And so I'd like to start by sharing a definition of that, which is here on the screen. Food security exists when all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food, which meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Now, for many of us, we don't have major concerns about where our next meal is coming from. And that's something that we can take for granted. But for many people in the world, people are struggling with food security. And they just don't know where the next meal is coming from. And to be fair, there's people like that all over the world, even in this country. But World Vision is focusing in countries where there is risk of hunger and starvation. And this is what we're going to talk about this evening. Now, you can hear from me, but I think it's even better you can hear from World Vision and some of our team who are working around the world. And so I'd like to bring them into this discussion through a video. And so we're going to watch a video, and then I'm going to ask a question after the video through a poll question that will come up. And so we'll play the video now.
This is the grain of a 2021 harvest. This is wheat. This is actually good wheat. You can make very good flour out of it. This year we're having a problem.
Currently, we have quite a lot of granaries which are full with food, but they are not able to export. Normally, they've been using the Black Seas, and the Black Seas is not anymore operating. The bigger part of North Africa and the Middle East that depends on wheat from Ukraine and Russia, they are not able to get that.
If we are able to sell it within Ukraine, we sell it on very low prices. And the loss for the farmer means that we cannot invest for the next year crop.
Five of those countries that have been affected by the global crisis, 36 of those have been depending mainly on cereals that comes from either Ukraine and Russia, and they are not able to get that.
As we all know, the Ukraine crisis has had many impacts in Europe and around the world. And one of these impacts is increased hunger around the world, as the video has shared here. And along with that, we are still reeling from the impacts of the pandemic, from conflict, and from various other factors that are leading to situations of hunger globally. Now, there's a poll question that will show up on your Zoom screen in just a minute here. There we go. And here's a question for you to answer. And the question is, in which of the following countries is there not a major hunger crisis? Kenya, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Lebanon, or all of the above? So I'll give you just a minute. If you can submit your answer there, that'd be great. Thanks for your responses. I see those coming through. Well, the answer here is that all of the above are experiencing a major hunger crisis. Some of the countries listed here are not often listed as being in the worst, but this year, so many countries have been impacted that there's quite a large number of countries that are experiencing a major hunger crisis. And so all of the ones listed here are, which is very unfortunate. Some of these countries have been doing better, but because of COVID and conflict and the Ukraine situation, all this has made things worse. And so that is the poll that I had to share with you. Thanks for participating in that. And I hope that helps us get a better sense of what's happening globally. Now, what we'll see on the next slide here is a map of the world in which World Vision is focused on hunger response. So World Vision is working in 26 countries where there is a major hunger crisis. And as you can see here, they range across the continents. And there's some that are highlighted in red. These are where the situation is particularly dire and people are really on the verge of famine or are experiencing famine-like conditions. And so here we have Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Somalia, South Sudan, Yemen, and quite a number of other countries. And this is where World Vision currently is working to try and provide aid to people who are either struggling to have just a meal or people who are experiencing the dire effects of not having enough food to eat, which can lead to major health complications and all kinds of other problems. So I'd like to just share that World Vision has been speaking out about this situation globally. And so together with a number of other charities has been making statements at the UN General Assembly, as well as on various other platforms that we have been able to access. And one of the things that has come up is that we estimate that one person is dying of hunger every 4 seconds. And that's such a terrible statistic in this world. It's really hard to imagine that. But the statistics are showing us that this is what is happening. This situation is not in the news as much. There's a lot of other stories in the news. And unfortunately, this story has been drowned out. But this is really what we are seeing on the ground from organizations that are working in various countries around the world. This crisis is really a children's crisis. You'll see what you'll see next is an image of one of the people that we've helped, him and his family, who experienced lack of food. And they came to one of our centers in Somalia for treatment, actually, because of hunger, his children became ill and had to be provided with treatment. And so this is one of those stories we've heard. There's so many stories, but really highlighting the impact that this crisis has on children. Unfortunately, children are the ones who suffer the most, because early in their life, when they don't have enough to eat, they don't have adequate nutrition, the rest of their lives are negatively impacted. I can relate to that. I have a 1.5-year-old at home, and just to imagine him not having enough to eat is really heart-wrenching. And so just to imagine so many people who don't have access to food is quite sad. I will say, though, that World Vision is responding. And as you'll see in the next slide, we're doing various things. We're doing a lot of work around the world to try and meet the needs of people. And here you'll see some highlights of what we've been able to do in response to the situation in regards to food, water, health, mental health and protection, and long-term resilience. We're trying to provide for people's immediate needs, which means sometimes providing food assistance, and sometimes it means helping people to plant crops so they can provide for themselves. And so there's a whole range of interventions that we are able to do. And my colleague Rose, who will be speaking next, will share with you in more detail what we do in regard specifically to nutrition for children.
So thank you, Kevin, and thank you everyone for joining tonight. And we'll start off with another poll, a question just to get us all interacting. It's going to come up on your screen. So the question is about severely malnourished children are 12 times likely to die than well-nourished children. But what proportion of those severely malnourished children receive the treatment they need to recover? So we see, majority of us say it's a third, and that is correct, and it's a sad situation, but I'll cover that in my talk this evening. So thank you for responding to that poll. And just to start off, I'll talked about the effects of food insecurity and hunger. And one of the really worrying situations is that we have one child around the world falling into severe malnutrition every minute. So for every minute we've been on this webinar so far, a number of children are falling into severe malnutrition. But then to break down this situation for you, I'll tell you about Hamdi from Baidoa in Somalia. So Hamdi is the baby you see on the screen on both pictures, on the left and on the right. So on the left, Hamdi was brought to a World Vision supported clinic in Baidoa. And Hamdi is only 7 months old. And at the time of coming to the clinic, she weighed 8.8 pounds. So that's very low weight for the age, right? But in a follow-up visit on the right-hand side on the picture, which was 1 month later, Hamdi's health was making steady progress. I think if you can see Hamdi's eyes are more alert in that picture. And she had gained close to 3 pounds. So she was steadily gaining weight. But she had also recovered from cough. She had a cough which was treated during the first visit, and that had cleared by the follow-up visit. So it shows the treatment was working for Hamdi. She was yet to recover. You can see on the tape in the right-hand side is still on the red section. She still has malnutrition, but she's on the path to recovery. But even broader than that is to protect Hamdi and her siblings from falling into malnutrition in the future. World Vision registered Hamdi's mother to receive cash assistance, direct cash assistance for up to 6 months. So that is what we call, it's a safety net, so that the family can buy food, they can cover for health costs and for other family needs. So how did this treatment happen? I'll tell you more about this program to treat malnutrition that Hamdi went through. And I'll talk through this chart from the left to the right-hand side of the chart. And Hamdi suffered from what we call acute malnutrition, and also is called wasting. So I might use the terms every now and then. And acute malnutrition occurs due to short-term factors like lack of food, like we're experiencing now with the hunger crisis, or even an episode of disease like diarrhea. A child becomes malnourished in the short term. And those children, as we've seen in the poll question, are at a higher risk of death due to malnutrition, 12 times more likely to die if they are severely malnourished than healthy children. But just to explain how the program works, so on the extreme left, children who suffer moderate acute malnutrition are treated in a supplementary feeding program. So in this program, they receive a nutritious porridge, usually a mix of corn and soy flour, or they get what is called ready-to-use supplementary food, and that helps them to recover. But if these children with moderate malnutrition are not treated in a timely manner, they can fall into severe acute malnutrition, and they need treatment in the outpatient therapeutic program. So that's the second column from the left. And that is the situation which Hamdi came to World Vision Clinic at. So these children, you can see they're thin and their risk of death is higher. It starts to go high. And the good news is that 85% of children at this stage, they can be treated at home like Hamdi. They're given a sachet of peanut paste, which is high in nutrients, to take home, and they come back to the clinic for follow-up. But if children progress to severe acute malnutrition and develop medical complications on the third column, they need inpatient treatment, which is usually in a hospital. Most of the times it's further away from home, and that treatment needs to be very urgent, because at this level, children are at a very extreme risk of death. And in the hospital, they're given therapeutic milk because they cannot eat solid food, and their system cannot handle the type of food they can be using at home. So they are in very dire situation, and they need, round the clock monitoring for their weight, their vitals, and their situation to stabilize. But if these children, the medical conditions are stabilized, we see between 6 to 10 days, they get stabilized and they can be referred back to the community. They go to the outpatient therapeutic program and they continue treatment at home. So we do like to really rescue the children before they can get into the severe situation with complications, because that becomes quite inaccessible. it's fine at hospital, it becomes expensive, even if World Vision is providing the services or supporting government to provide the services, there's the transport cost, and the mother or the caregiver has to go accompany the child and stay with them in the ward, and that leaves the other children at home vulnerable. But as we've seen great success, overall in World Vision's program, we deliver these programs throughout, even before the hunger crisis, but even more during this hunger crisis. We are doing more because the scale of need is higher. And over the last 10 years, close to 9 of every 10 children who are severely malnourished and have come to World Vision programs, they've made a full recovery. So that is good success. But with the poll, the unfortunate situation is that only a third of these children receive that treatment, mostly due to lack of funding and resources to ensure that the local clinics have the necessary supplies and staff. So that is good news, mixed with some unfortunate situation, but it just calls for all of us to do more. So on the next slide, I'll tell you about how we do this work. And it's really to highlight that we don't work alone. We work with community and community volunteers like Atong, the lady in the picture that we can see her back, is a key player in this program. So Atong has been visiting Deng, the boy in the picture, with her auntie in South Sudan. And many children in South Sudan require treatment from a community health clinic. And Deng, I've said, she's cared for by the auntie, who one of the things, we know aunties are there to play with children and to enjoy a good time with them, but it's not the case for Auntie Akat. She has to carry Deng on her back for 2 hours to go to the clinic for services. And at one point, attending follow-up for Deng was not possible due to flooding in their village. So Atong, the community volunteer, had to go and find Deng and the auntie. And this is really the daily situation for Atong, the community volunteer. She walks from home to home, screening children for malnutrition, as you can see, using the tape, which is colored, and referring those children to World Vision programs at any nearby health centers. And when caregivers don't come to the health center, like in the case of Deng, the Atong goes to them to bring them the services. And as a mother, she's a mother, and it gives her great joy to see children recover from malnutrition. So we partner with communities, even in this situation of the hunger crisis. But we also partner with other like-minded organizations because the situation, especially at this point, is dire. The numbers are big, as Kevin has mentioned, and therefore we need to really get governments involved in addressing the issue and coming in to support urgently. So in the next slide, you see just a few things that we've been able to do with other organizations. Recently, World Vision and other NGOs have written an open letter to the UN General Assembly asking for urgent action to the hunger crisis around the world, and especially in the countries that are most affected. But also closer home in the UK, we've partnered with other organizations, NGOs, to petition the UK government to act urgently on the East Africa hunger crisis in specific. But we're also highlighting this in the media. Kevin mentioned that the issue is not getting as much attention as it should. So in the 2 weeks ago, we had highlighting this issue with Sky News, their young people's program. And also just last week, we partnered with Premier Radio on a campaign to highlight the issue and what people can do to help. And even on a broader scale, because the hunger crisis is driven by climate change, we have our World Vision Asia office joining members of parliament at an all-party parliamentary group, highlighting the impact of climate change on nutrition in their country and what they are doing to address the situation. So it's a number of things we are trying to do alongside other people. But I'll stop here and I'll hand you over to Arthur, who is going to talk about the holistic approach in which we use to address food insecurity and malnutrition. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. That's really good to hear your presentation. So hello everyone, my name is Arthur. Today we're going to talk about my favorite subject, food. And we all love food, don't we? I think it's one of the things that makes me so passionate about the job I do is I can't bear to think of people not having enough food. And so Yeah, that's what drives me, I think, some of the time. Today, I want to share with you some of the ways World Vision works to improve food security as a system for the children where we work, and to ensure that food security does not get to the crisis levels that Rose and Kevin talked about. World Vision tends to act through projects such as livelihoods, nutrition, access to credit, and water, and quite likely a combination of these based on the needs identified through discussion. We call this a systems approach. We analyse with the community where the gaps are that are preventing their livelihood systems functioning. Of course, there are many other things that impact food security as a system, from markets, health, culture, politics, look at Ukraine, environmental degradation, climate change. All of these can affect food security systems and are taken into account. So normally the process goes like this. We talk together with farmers in the community. We ask them what the issues are. We understand the system as it is, usually through assessments and secondary data, and triangulate that with the conversations we've had. And then we design a solution and implement it together. And it's this kind of considered research and planning that helps us have long-lasting solutions. In the next slide, you can see this is when I was in Ethiopia talking with some farmers, and I was trying to understand the context. They were on this hillside and it had been overgrazed, and water had run off into the valley below and flood it, and this was affecting the families who live there. And they're explaining to me how they can control grazing, and that lets the grass grow back and controls the flooding. So a very simple systems approach to understanding the issues. In the next slide, we can see some of the ways World Vision works to intervene to improve food security for children. And here's a nutrition example from Bolivia. This is a photo I took when I was in Bolivia 2 years ago now, even three, COVID. Children in our Bolivia program typically have very little access to fruit and vegetables. And so we developed these really basic greenhouses in schools where children learn to grow spinach and kale at school, and then benefit from the nutrition and learn how to grow them as well. In Tanzania, we work with farmers to improve their agricultural skills, so they're able to produce food for consumption in a way that is sustainable and resilient to the effects of climate change. Recently, we have been bringing in improved crops that have shorter seasons, higher yields, and improved nutritional qualities, such as orange fleshed sweet potato. I always struggle to say that. And it has some higher levels of vitamin A than traditional white flesh varieties, which people normally eat. Also in Tanzania, in the next video, in the next slide, we've got a video from a wonderful woman called Margrethe, who is the chair of a women's cooperative where we work. And I think that's going to play now.
Tunawashukuru shirika la World Vision kwa kutupatia mafunzo mbalimbali. Sisi kama kikundi, kwanza kabisa tulikuwa na mradi wa upishi, na kupitia mradi huo wa upishi tulipata faida ambazo tena shirika walitusapoti kwa kutuanzishia mradi mwingine wa mashine ya kukamua mbegu ya alizeti. Mradi ambao unatupatia kipato, tunaweza tukauza mashudu, tukauza mafuta, na pia tunaweza kuwahudumia jamii yote inayotuzunguka. Kwa hiyo tunashukuru sana shirika la World Vision kwa kuendelea kutupa mafunzo.
Thank you. So we can see that often the local economy is not always working for the poorest people. And in this project, we work with a women's cooperative who were able to borrow funds from our sister organization, Vision Fund, and buy a machine that significantly improved their ability to expand their business by adding value to their crop of sunflowers, producing oil for sale, and bypassing middlemen who took most of the profits normally. In the next slide, we can see Jacob and Tina, that's right, I forgot their names. And they also borrowed money from Vision Fund, and they were able to buy a sewing machine, the black one in the foreground, and then the white one in the back. And with that, they sewed clothes and were able to pay back the loan, and then they were able to provide for their children. One of the biggest barriers to small-scale producers succeeding is the lack of cash flow or credit, just as some people in the UK are stuck renting and being unable to save up for a mortgage deposit. Families in our programs are stuck having to sell their harvest early when crops are cheap to middlemen. The loan means that families don't have to sell their crop as soon as they have harvested, but can wait until the price has gone up. And this is Jacob and Tina with their crop, waiting until the right price, and so they can sell it and actually earn a decent wage. Lastly, access to water is so important, and it's one of the tools in our toolbox. Water is vital for humans and crops, and sickness through drinking dirty water means that children, especially young children, can become very sick, and any benefits from eating food are lost. So we have to think holistically about nutrition and tackle the issues that are causing the challenges in any given context. I've put here some ways World Vision intervenes in the water sector. So we have in technology, like this really neat solar irrigation pump, which I really liked, that I saw in Kenya, boreholes for drinking water, agricultural techniques like moisture conservation, mulching, changes in health and hygiene behavior, so people improve their hand washing, and the management of water systems so they last longer and actually benefit people long term. So as you can see, it's not a one size fits all to tackling hunger, but understanding the system and where the gaps are. And this helps us plan our projects for maximum impact and relevance. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Arthur. It was really, and Kevin and Rose as well. That was so insightful and so informative. Really hard, though, as you say, when you hear how 1 in 4 people are just not getting a dime because they're not got enough food to eat when we live in a world where we have so much abundance. I found that quite hard, same as the amount of people suffering from malnutrition. But it's now time for us to go across to our question and answer session. So if any of you have got questions, you see the little Q&A button at the bottom, please do type those in, and then one of our panel will answer those for you.
Not too difficult.
Nice and simple one, that one, probably the easiest thing. Give it a little longer just in case. There's no question too silly either, so never think there is, because if you're thinking it, probably someone else thinking the same thing. Right, there we go. Let's have a look. It says here you haven't, there's 2 here actually. We've got Sue said you haven't touched on the migration problem as a result of lack of food. People travel to other areas to find food, putting a burden on that region. I don't know if anybody wants to speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's very much a reality. And in many parts of the world, we're seeing people migrate, not just across borders, but also within borders for food. And so one of the places we're seeing a lot of this is in Somalia, where things are quite bad, and people are having to move from rural areas to urban areas. And when they come to urban areas, they're expecting that there'll be resources, but in many cases, there's actually not enough, and there's a lot of strain on the system. So likewise as well, there's border movements from country to country. That's very much a reality. And so thanks for sharing that. Thanks for pointing that out. That's absolutely something we are seeing, and the impact of food insecurity really on migration internally and externally.
Thanks, Kevin. Another question we've got here is, we've got one, there's a couple actually come up on here. So what can we do to change the statistic from 1/3 of children suffering into a better state of affairs?
Yeah, I can take that. So yeah, I think this is about only 1/3 of the children that need the nutrition programs to treat severe malnutrition, get it. And the reasons for that is most of the time lack of supplies to the local health clinic. So we've seen, like in Hamdi's case, they need the local clinic, to have the supplies and the staff to provide that treatment. But if the logistics are not there, to transport supplies from the central region to the local clinic, then Hamdi will go to the clinic and there is no supply. So that's one thing, ensuring that the supplies are there. But even now, it's become more complicated with the rise in the inflation, really, and fuel prices going up, that cost of the ready-to-use therapeutic food has gone up. So the cost of programming has even gone up now. So with you reach less children with the same amount of pounds as we did in the past. So ensuring that there's more support at this point is really important, because programs are having to make difficult decisions if they can continue to provide the same amount of support that they did in the past, while actually they should be providing more support. But because the funding they had, the support they had doesn't stretch as far. So that's the other thing. And the final thing to mention is about staffing, really ensuring that the local nurses are trained and they are able to stay in very rural, remote locations. So really providing the support for them to get the training they need. And sometimes it's even setting up an accommodation, for them, that they can stay in a very local, rural facility to be able to provide the treatment. So it's a system, it's really supporting the existing system, the local clinics, to provide this treatment for children. Just some of the things maybe to highlight for now.
Thanks, Rose. The next one we've got here is, what is the impact of climate change, particularly in East Africa?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the climate change in East Africa means more unpredictable weather, more extreme weather. So in East Africa, we've seen extreme flooding, we've seen extreme drought. And while many people in East Africa have developed livelihood systems that can cope with extremes, for example, herding cows and camels and goats and moving to where water is and where rain has fallen, climate change has pushed those systems to breaking point. And we've seen that people are unable to actually cope with the extremes of weather that we're now seeing through climate change.
Thanks, Arthur. Then one here we've got here, do you try to stop people cutting down forests? If anyone wants to go for that one.
I think, Arthur, you might speak to this one as well.
We do try to stop people cutting down forests. In fact, my wife is a beekeeper, and when we were in Tanzania, we saw a beekeeping group who had put bees in the forest, and they said that it was really helpful because people were afraid of the bees, so they would stop cutting the trees down in the forest. And so I thought that was a very interesting way of managing degradation of the forest. But we work with farmers, we work with communities, we help expand their understanding of why forests are important. And so they actually develop local bylaws where it becomes wrong for people to cut down trees. So that's one of the ways we can do it. The other way is sharing our project model with them, which is farmer managed natural regeneration, where people grow crops in conjunction with trees. And it's a very effective system for improving agricultural yields and improving soil and the environment in general.
Thank you. The next one I've got here is, for each of you, which is the most progressive thing, or what is the most progressive thing you have seen in your experience with World Vision so far? So if you all would like to come up with a sort of answer for that one.
I think for me, probably it's what Arthur had shared earlier, which is about a process of engaging with communities and really not just coming in with what we think is the best thing, but really listening to communities, having that dialogue and conversation so that we work together. So for me, I would highlight that.
This week, I'm going to somewhere in Bracknell in Hampshire to look at vertical farming, and one company who want to grow crops with minimal water in containers using solar power and like a hydroponic system. So we were always looking at new things, innovative ways of doing things. They're not always appropriate, and sometimes, yeah, they're not the best, but we always like to look at innovation, like the solar-powered water pump I showed you, and the farmer-managed natural regeneration. So that we're always looking for cutting-edge, new ways of doing things that can really benefit the communities where we are.
Thank you. And the last two, Rose.
Yeah, and staying actually with innovation, the topic of innovation, one of the things we are doing with assessing children for malnutrition, screening them for malnutrition, is going beyond the community volunteer, as I mentioned in South Sudan, to actually equipping the mothers and the families themselves with that tape, the plastic tape, which is colored, to screen children themselves. So they get trained and they're provided with a tape which they can be monitoring the malnutrition for children at home. And that means that they can really see when the child is falling into malnutrition and come forward to the clinic, so the children get early treatment earlier than before they get worse and worse. So that's one of the innovative things. It's really with the community. It's for the community to be more involved and own the situation for themselves. So that's one of the things that we are trying to get more we are really doing it. We've done research and it's very effective. But in terms of working with the UN, I think there was a question. One of the things we are trying to push with the UN organizations, UNICEF and the World Health Organization, is for this approach to actually be more taken to scale as a practice, as a standard practice, because then that way World Vision is able to even implement it further and others can do more. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll do one more quick question if we can get a quick answer, which is, I sponsor 2 children. How do you choose which areas to concentrate on?
Arthur, I think you're still the best person for this question.
So yeah, thanks, Kevin. So I think you mean globally. So we look for the countries which are struggling the most, and we use a range of indicators, food security being one of them. And then within countries, we also look at the areas within countries that are struggling and are the most fragile. So for example, we've just started 2 new programs in Kenya, and they're both in the north of Kenya, which are cattle herding pastoralist communities. And they really are more on the margins of society in Kenya, with very low representation in parliament, and generally have been marginalized for quite a long time. And so we've decided to open 2 projects there, and they've really, that's also a very arid part of Kenya as well. So yeah, we look globally, and then we look within countries where the greatest needs are.
Thank you. So there was one other question, which is a quick one, which is just how many of us are on here, which I can answer, which is 49 of us have joined tonight just to hear more about this. So thank you everybody for that. And I'm just going to now let's put across to Nick, who's our Faith and Development Manager, who's just going to pray for some of the work that we are doing. Thanks, Nick.
What a privilege, and a privilege to share this evening with every one of you who are participating and are supporting. We're in this very much together. But my reflection is this is both good news and very hard news. It's challenging, it's painful, and really it's too much for us to hold. But I'm reminded in Psalm 24, it says, the earth is the Lord's, and actually at times it's for us to lean in to him and to pray. So I'm just going to lead us in a few sentences of prayer, things that are on my heart and our heart as a team. And if you are a praying that's part of your world, please continue to pray and ask God how to pray for these things, because it's his world and he's passionate about it. So we lean into God. God, we thank you for your world, its wonder and its beauty. But we ask that you'd forgive us for how we have misused and we've miscared for your creation. Thank you for our call to help make the world a safer place for the world's most vulnerable children. Please help us prioritize how we bring relief. Please, Father, guide us as we advocate for making change and for making connections with key parties. We ask that you would guard and guide our staff in the areas of acute vulnerability. And please may your protection and your mercy help those families who are experiencing hunger and malnutrition. Please show us how to support and to pray. And you've encouraged us to pray for leaders. And we pray for the hearts of leaders to be moved, to make decisions, to enable food to move, and for resources to be released. Father God, may your kingdom come here on earth, and may hope and recovery increase. We ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Nick. So once again, as we come to a close now, I just want to thank our panelists, Rose, Kevin and Arthur, for sharing and giving up your time this evening, sharing about the tremendous work that World Vision is doing to tackle this issue. And thank you to every one of you who has joined us tonight. If it wasn't for you and the support that you give us, this work would not have happened. And it's thanks to your continued support that we can continue to help and ensure that people have enough to eat and they're not dying of malnutrition. So thank you to every one of you for all of your support, all of your prayers, and just everything that you do for us. Now, when you leave tonight, there is going to be just a short survey that will pop up. And I would encourage you that if you could please do complete this. Let us know what you thought about this evening. And also there's a part on there where you could tell us what other topics you would like to find out more about. And that way we can continue making sure that these 6 monthly webinars that we're doing are as interested in and as relevant to you as possible. So please do just take a couple of minutes just to complete that for us as well. So thank you once again for all of your support, and just have an amazing evening. God bless. Thank you.